All right. Welcome back to another week of Touchdown, coming at you from Pointer's Bar and Restaurant in Vienna, Austria. I'm your host, Joel Turpin. As always, with me, my co-hosts, Philly Chris Burdett, Katie Eichhorn, and David Asselin. Get it started off this week real quick with a discussion about teams that are poised to make the step where they're becoming real playoff contenders, maybe teams that had a bit of a slow start but are turning it on now, and teams that are probably going to fall out of the race. And we're looking at the next 3 weeks as our time frame. So over the next 3 weeks, I've asked each one of my co-hosts to come up with one team that they think is going to make the jump and one team that's going to fall out of the race. Chris?
Yeah, so to start off with, for me, it's the San Diego Chargers on the way down. This is a team that had a lot of good things going on for quite a long time. Then they hit the beast Kansas City Chiefs. Didn't look so good against them. And listen, the last 4 weeks, they've been 3-1. But the teams that they played other than the Kansas City Chiefs have a total of 2 wins amongst all of them combined. So really the numbers that they're producing, I think, are a lot stronger than what we would really normally see out of the Chargers. Plus the fact that, to me, Antonio Gates, how long can he really stay away or stay relevant here this season? And also Brandon Oliver, I think from a running back side of things, he's done a heck of a job. He struggled a little bit against Kansas City. I see it kind of continuing to go down from him. They lose a little bit of the running game. That hurts them long term. San Diego on the way down. On the way up, and this is going to be a little bit of maybe a personal, goal here, is the Chicago Bears. Listen, big shout out to my mom. She's from Chicago. I'm a big supporter of the Chicago Bears. But listen, there's a lot of talent in that locker room. I think between Jay Cutler, Brandon Marshall, Alshon Jeffrey on the outside from the wide receiver side of things, and Matt Forte at the running back. There's a lot of passion. There's a lot of chemistry that still needs to be developed. I think actually the whole blow-up last week with Brandon Marshall basically calling out the team in the locker room, that's a lot of passion. That's a lot of frustration. I think that does a lot to bring this team together. You also had Brian Urlacher basically calling out Jay Cutler, saying that he's not worth what he's worth, or what he's being paid rather. Again, I think these are going to be 2 rallying cries. They're going to bring that team together. A lot of offense in there that needs to just kind of bring out a little bit. Moving forward, Chicago Bears on the way up, hopefully.
Speaking as someone who doesn't have any relatives in Chicago, I think you're way off on this one. I'm picking Chicago as my team that's crash and burn right now. Nothing against them. I like a lot of their players, a lot of their... Again, as you point out, a lot of their skill position players are very solid. Brandon Marshall's having a very down season, though. I mean, he's calling other people out. He should really be calling himself out because he's one of their underperformers this year. And, I'm just being realistic. I'm looking at that schedule. Right now, Chicago's sitting at 3-4. Their next 3 weeks have them at New England and a bye, and then at Green Bay. Now, so I think the best thing there is that they got a bye, so they can't lose 3 in a row. So that's nice.
Wow.
Yeah, but I think realistically they're looking at 3-6 coming out of that before heading to Minnesota and then getting into the meat of the divisional schedule in the last. And at that point they just got to almost win out, and I don't see it happening. I think they'll end up with a 8-8, 7-9, 9-7 kind of record, but on the outside looking in when it comes to playoff time. However, I'm going to go out on a limb here. It's dangerous to pick the home favorite team, as we found out recently when Katie got all pumped up behind the Brownies. I'm going to say KC is the team on the way up. Now, unlike Chicago, who's lost 3 of their last 4, Kansas City has won 3 of their last 4 to pull even at 3-3. Not an outstanding record, but that's the whole point here. They're a team on the rise, I think, and their upcoming schedule reflects a very good chance to move ahead. They've got St. Louis at home, the Jets at home, and at Buffalo in their next 3 weeks, all very winnable games. And I don't think there's if they can come out of that at 6-3, which is, a bit of a stretch because they've lost at Tennessee, against Tennessee earlier, so they could be tripped up. But if they come out of that at 6-3, and then head into the meat of their divisional schedule, I think they're looking really good at picking up a wild card spot. Maybe not challenging Denver for the AFC West, but, keeping it exciting. Katie?
Yep. I'm not sure whether we can really say that my team on the rise has been down early in the season. Indianapolis is my team on the rise, and they started their season with 2 losses, but since then have just snowballed into gelling on all fronts. As we saw last week, I did pick them to beat Cincinnati. However, I didn't pick them to beat Cincinnati quite the way they did. And I was really surprised, well, I won't say really surprised, but impressed with the way that Indianapolis played last week. Andrew Luck is going into his 6th straight game with 300 yards, and he's hitting Ty Hilton. Or T.Y., I have to say. It's not Ty, it's T.Y.
Hilton, the wide receiver. Yeah.
And Reggie Wayne, like it's nobody's business. The crowd is behind them, the team is together, and their defense is looking stronger than it was early in the year, and their offense is running on all cylinders. So I'm picking Indianapolis on the rise, 6th win in a row. Let's see. I think another colleague of mine will cover that game this coming week. However, last week I'm going to eat my words. I was in defense of Seattle. I'm no longer in defense of Seattle. Rather, Seattle's defense, oh dear, that used to be something unstoppable, a powerhouse that you could not reckon with, and now it looks full of holes. Really, last season, stat that I found this week, last season they were the number 1 defense putting pressure on the quarterback, and this season they are dead last in doing that. Quarterback in the pocket is safe as the Pope at the moment right now against Seattle, so they're not looking impressive. They're certainly not looking like the defending Super Bowl champs. When we had our bold pick about them not making the playoffs, I disagreed. This week's 26-28 loss to the Rams is making me start to say maybe that pick isn't as bold as it once was. It might be a very safe pick, in fact. So those are my 2 rising and falling.
This week I'm going with, as my team on the up, is the Green Bay Packers in a division with the Bears, as you guys mentioned earlier, who are going down or up, depending on whose opinion you're listening to. I can put it in 2 words: Aaron Rodgers. If you want playing right now in the NFL, he's not Peyton, and he hasn't got the arsenal that Peyton does. He's probably the number 1 quarterback playing right now in the NFL, by hands down. He's got 2 big receivers in Jordy Nelson and Randy Cobb, who have also stepped it up in the last 3 or 4 games. Defensively, okay, they are vulnerable in defense, but in the NFL, at the moment, almost just about every team is of weakness. There's a very few strong defensive teams in the NFL. It seems to be like an offensive year this year, 2014. Let's not forget Eddie Lacy. Also had a slow start, but he's now starting to punch out some of the hard yards to set up Nelson and Cobb. Lots of home games for the Packers in the next half of the season. 5 of the home games are 5 of the 8 games coming up in the last half of the season are home games in Lambeau Field. But in the coming weeks, they are facing divisional rivals. They got New Orleans this week, in New Orleans, which I think will be a shootout, but I'll get into this later. Then they got a bye coming into town, and then they got the Browns coming to town. I think it looks nothing but sorry, not the Browns. They got the Bears coming to town.
I was pretty sure that we weren't going to Green Bay, otherwise I would be looking significantly more worried than I am.
If they can come out with 2 wins during this week, and this is 2 games in the next 3 weeks, then they've got the Eagles followed by the Patriots, and then we'll see what happens. But I think the Packers look like they're on their way up. Now, going down. As much as I'd like to see Cincinnati prove me wrong, and I like the Bengals for some reason, I think they got the best helmets in the NFL.
Very cool helmets.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
And now that Andy
kids
Dalton
like
has
the
dyed
Bengals.
his hair to match the helmet, it's amazing.
yeah.
Look, the people like it's Tigger Run, Winnie the Pooh, or whatever. Although Andy Dalton has had a decent quarterback rating in the first half of the season, his numbers are way down from last year at this time. He's only got 6 touchdowns, which is less than half of what he should be at this time. Not only is he off pace with last year's numbers, but he just doesn't seem to be the same quarterback we saw towards the end of last year. He's getting more pressured, but enough about the quarterback, because football, as we know, is a team effort. We talked about this earlier in the year when they lost A.J. Green, what sort of impact that would have, and I believe now we're beginning to see this. All-pro wide receiver, and Giovanni Bernard is also limping this week, limited practice. The only shining note outside of maybe Dalton's hapless performances. Mohamed Sanu is having a career year, but you can't ride on the back of one man's legs.
Not one receiver.
No.
No, you got to have somebody throwing in the rock.
Defensively, they are riddled in every key position, from the front line to secondary to the deep in the safety position. And their schedule is very unfavorable going down the stretch. I'm not going to say the word pivotal because we seem to have a hard time with that, but in these crucial division matches coming up, they got
We don't seem to have a hard time
New
with it,
Orleans,
but
Denver, and Houston. I think we'll have something to say about their postseason wins. Hell, the Steelers can even rain on their parade at the last game of the year. So, in the last 4 weeks of the game, they got Steelers twice, your Browns, and Broncos.
Alrighty. Moving on. We're going to try another segment of buying or not buying. Going to discuss a little bit about some things that are impacting the league and see if our panel thinks they're going to continue or not. The first one is the rules changes from the off season. I'm going to have Dave speak to them more specifically. The illegal contact rule. A lot of people feel that rule was put in place almost exclusively to deal with Seattle's Legion of Boom, their defense that was just hammering receivers last year. With this in place, the Seattle defense has fallen out of favor a little bit. They're down, I think, ranked number 6 in yardage, the traditional measurement, and even worse in scoring defense right now. The question is, do we think that due to this rule, Seattle is actually going to finish outside of the top 5 in defense this year? Are we buying that proposition?
I'm kind of half-heartedly buying this, but let me touch on this illegal contact rule first of all. The old rule was basically no redirecting, restricting, or impeding the receiver in any way 5 yards after the line of scrimmage while the quarterback is still in the pocket. The new rule basically says the same thing, but the quarterback does not need to be in the pocket, so he can scramble. Any actual hands on the receiver, it's actually become a referee's judgment, I think, on this part, because I've seen calls that have plays that have been called and plays that have been blatantly, he's been handcuffed and not been called. I can see it after the Super Bowl, this in the midwinter meetings of the NFL. They're probably going to redo this law, reword it, or do something. But going back to the Seattle, I don't actually agree with that because every team's defense is suffering that. They are the Super Bowl champions. And I said at the beginning of the year, everyone's going to be gunning for them. You've got egos, and they forgot there's no I in team. And sometimes the Super Bowl champions come back the next year and they say, look at me, I'm 10 foot tall and bulletproof, but everyone's gunning for you this year. And the rule might have hurt them a little bit, but it also hurt the Patriots or the Broncos or the Bears.
So you're buying?
I'm buying.
Katie?
I'm buying that they're not a top 5 defense anymore, as witnessed by this last week's performance. But in defense of the illegal contact rule, I think that was actually brought in more for the sense of so many discussions regarding concussions and the long-term effects thereof. And we've seen it a lot with long-term effects of head injuries to numbers of players and people speaking out in defense of that. I think they made a wise move in hardening the rule. At the same time, yeah, it does change strategy. And I think it maybe not exclusively hurt the Seahawks, much as my colleague said, but I'm buying that it's going to knock them down a few pegs.
Yeah, for me, I'm buying the fact that they finish outside of the top 5, but I'm not buying the argument that it is explicitly because of this new rule. If we take a look at what's transpired within Seattle from last year into this year, they've lost 3 key players in the defensive line side of things. They're letting up now. They've only get about a little over a half a sack a game this year versus 2 sacks a game last year. The pressures that you talked about as well, so between the hits on the quarterback and the hurries on the quarterback, they had 12.83 this year so far, last year 17.17. So really from my side of things, they're putting not enough pressure on the quarterback, and Pete Carroll himself has stated, we're doing basically the same thing, but if you've got not the guys that can really execute what you're trying to do last year, it's going to change it up. So of course, this rule on the receiver, it's tough. But really, I think you have other elements in there, and that's why I'm not buying that piece.
Fair enough. I'm going to go with buying. I think it's impacting a lot of teams, I think it impacts Seattle more than some others. I don't know that they put the rule in specifically to deal with Seattle.
Football, maybe, yes.
But I don't think it's a grand conspiracy, but I do think that it impacts them more than some other teams based on their style. And I do think it's going to keep them out of the top 5. Now, whether it drops them significantly, I don't think they're going to drop to the bottom half tier. But anyway. All right, the next proposition. The Cardinals, the Arizona Cardinals, off to a scintillating start. And the question is, are they going to keep it up? I mean, they're now leading the NFC West. Everybody was worried about is it going to be the Niners coming back? Is Seahawks going to defend? And here they are. The Cardinals are out in front. Is this the best Cardinals team ever? And by that, let me preface, regular season-wise, anything can happen in the playoffs, one-and-done format, whatever. But is this the best regular season Cardinals team ever? Will they end the season with, let's say, 12 wins? Are we buying that this is going to happen?
No. So I'm not buying that they're going to end up with 12 wins. Secondly, I'm not buying fully that you can discount the 2008 Super Bowl run that they made, losing by 4 points to the Pittsburgh Steelers. To me, it's the playoffs that really are the thing that counts, but nevertheless, fair enough. For me, the best team that they've ever had is 1925, folks. They went 11-2-1, losing to the Pottsville Maroons.
Oh, I remember it well. Yeah,
That was a banner year.
Not only did the Maroons come out of Pottsville, but that is home of Yingling Beer, the oldest brewery in the United States.
And
Next time you're interested in grabbing a cold, frothy beverage, try yourself a Yingling beer. On a more
exclusively served at my wedding.
There you go.
See?
Exactly.
There you go.
On a more serious side, I think, listen, they're a solid team. I think the 2 wins that Drew Stanton got them earlier on in the season are really big wins that they've got. They've got a balance between a veteran leadership of Carson Palmer, who's now back for his 3rd game straight after the injury, and Larry Fitzgerald. And at the same time, we have some up-and-comers, some fresh blood in running back Andre Ellington and Floyd on the receiver side of things. The interesting thing from my side of things is that this is a team that is the best against the defense, number 1, and second to the last against the pass. The defense is really kind of a strange thing. I think it's all a matter of time before it catches up to them. I think they end up with 10 wins. Still pretty solid, but not the best ever.
I mean, you really stole my thunder on the 1925
Yeah.
Arizona Cardinals. You know, that was top 5 teams of all time for me.
Yeah.
But that being said, when we proposed this topic, I said, well, I know very little about the Cardinals. And this is actually the first season that I said I took notice of the Cardinals. That has to speak to something somehow. This is the first time I've ever had the Cardinals somewhere on my radar. Well, I said normally I could give a crap less about the Cardinals. And now I'm actually interested in watching them. So I don't know if I can necessarily say that they might, maybe the second best Cardinals team of all time, withstanding the 1925 banner year for the Cardinals. But that being said, they're the best Cardinals team I've seen in my lifetime. My grandpa might beg to differ, but I don't know.
Excuse me. I kind of have to. I'm not buying it. I think the Cardinals got a real tough schedule ahead of them. They're playing Seattle, who we think is on the way down, but they're still playing Seattle and San Francisco. I kind of go along with my buddy here, Philly Chris, and finishing 10-6. Their defense secondary has some holes in it, but they managed to win the big games. But we'll see as the season goes along.
I think I'm buying it. I don't know that they're going to make a playoff run like they made in 2008, but I'm buying that their regular season record may be the best they've ever had, and it'll be exciting. But then again, I could also see this being one of those, hey, we got 12 or 13 wins at home field and watch us lose that first game after a week off, which of course would put a major damper on the season. But we'll see. I think they're going to have that best ever regular season when it's there. The Colts, looking good. Katie just talked them up. They're 5-2. They're hitting on all cylinders on the offensive side of the ball, and their defense is starting to play better. Finally finding a running game to complement that passing game. So my question is, assuming that Denver, again, is the favorite in the AFC to represent the Super Bowl, as they currently are, they've got the win over the Colts already in the season, so they've got the best chance of having the home field advantage at this point. Are the Colts our best chance to keep those hated Denver Broncos out of the Super Bowl?
Hated.
Okay.
I'm 100% buying that the Colts are a legitimate team, not just a legitimate team to win that division. They, as I said before, I don't think I really need to back up that argument too much. I've given you the stats. The Colts look good, and Andrew Luck is making a name for himself. He looked impressive in his first year. He's continued to get better, and now he's got, as you said, a balanced offense, good rushing game, good passing game, and honestly, their fans are behind them. I said last week that their fans would, the kind of mood would carry them, and I think that's going to continue to happen. The more they play at Lucas Oil Stadium, the more they win, and I'm 100% behind buying the Colts.
I can't add much to that. Luck is having a great year. I think he's leading the league right now in touchdowns. Defense still has his issues, like most teams I do right now in the NFL. They've got a tough schedule, but I don't see any. They just showed us with Baltimore a week or so ago. They've got a tough schedule, but I don't see anyone challenging them next other than the Broncos.
Yeah, listen, I like them. I think on a couple things. Number one, I think they have a lot to prove. There's a lot of guys out there with a little bit of chip on their shoulder coming down either towards the end of their career, like Reggie Wayne. Out last season, he's coming back, one of the swan songs for him. I think Andrew Luck matured at a young age, but also think about the fact that this has really been this Peyton Manning Indianapolis Colts, and can he then take hold of that team and really drive it to him, to his team? Trent Richardson, a guy who was really struggling last season, a no man's guy. He's now becoming a team player on the running back side of things. You got two-headed running attack there with him and Ahmad Bradshaw. I really like the team. I think they're really a solid team. I agree. I'm buying it.
Yeah, I'm buying it too, with the outlier that, as always, nobody's going to want to play Baltimore if they get into the playoffs, because they always find a way to get that first or second win even and make things interesting.
Maybe the Pats knock them off.
Yeah, the Pats did so well against Baltimore in the playoffs.
Yes.
It's kind of a gimme, really. So, okay, one more. Buying or not buying. We'll make this a quick one. DeMarco Murray. Running back for Dallas. He's on a record pace. He could possibly break Eric Dickerson's 2,105-yard season for the Rams. That's just straight running yards. Are we buying this as being sustainable, or do we think he's going to wear down and or have some sort of injury that keeps him from getting there?
I'm buying it totally. Dallas has the best offensive line in the NFL right now, hands down. When you got huge guys like that plowing the way through you, of course you're going to put up the big yards. And as the coach Garrett of the Dallas Cowboys said himself, he says, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And I'm totally for it. I mean, this is old-style football, running it down your throat, Cowboys football that we used to see years and years ago. And, I keep going for it. I see him going over 2,000 yards, of course.
Listen, I'm not buying this one. Number one, I don't think he's going to get that many yards. And number two, I actually think the fact he's on pace to carry the ball 427 times. I actually think this is a bit irresponsible of the Dallas Cowboys. Personally, I think a little bit, maybe even Jerry Jones has got his mouth in this a little bit. He's getting up in his age, that is Jerry Jones. He wants his team to get back into contention. Where's the horse that's doing it? It's DeMarco Murray. Larry Johnson, 416 yards, 16 carries in 2006.
For the Chiefs.
For the Kansas City Chiefs. What did he do the next year? Came back in 2007, he played 8 games. Jamal Anderson, 410 carries. So these are the top two guys of all time in 1998. The next year he comes back and plays only 2 games. In our lifetime, Adrian Peterson, 363. That's over 50 times, over 60 fewer carries than what he's on pace for at this point. I think you also have to consider the fact that you have a decent backup running back in Josh Randall. Why aren't they doing it? Again, I'm not buying it. And again, I think it's a little bit irresponsible of the Dallas Cowboys to really put that and injure this guy's perhaps career.
I second that notion completely. I think that they have put too many eggs in one basket, and one false move, one bad snap, this guy's down. And what are the Cowboys without him right now? They've really just looked as if they've relied entirely upon him. And is he impressive? 100%. But I think they're relying too heavily on him. And I've read some articles about he's approaching a burnout for the type of workouts he's doing to keep on pace.
Yeah, but no, and let's not forget too. The last couple seasons, he has never played 16 games.
Yeah.
He's been injury prone. He tweaked an ankle against the Giants last week. I really think, and you got a guy in Josh Randall. He's averaging 6.7 carries a game. Why don't you just give the guy the ball a few times a game, and then before you know it, he gets this thing down, and you're in trouble.
This is the NFL. This is what these people get paid for.
And every time somebody's done that, they've gotten hurt, and they've just basically ruined their careers.
And
it's ridiculous.
The Cardinals are leading the NFC West. The football has changed, my friend.
Cats and dogs living together.
I'm also not buying it, once again, in large part due to the injury factor. I think I don't think he's brittle, but I do think, that kind of workload, you're asking for it, and more often than not, you're looking at some sort of injury. So, okay. Well, that's going to wrap it up for the first half here, and we'll be back in a few minutes and kick off the second half. Bye-bye.
Sorry.
And we're back. Ready for the second half. We've brought in a relief pitcher, somebody to help us out here, Mr. Mark Bartle. He's going to join the crew for the second half, so welcome, Mark.
Thank you.
And we're going to start off talking about last week's picks. And gosh, we did pretty good as a panel last week. Only 4 games. Cincinnati at Indy. We all picked Indy. We were all right. Carolina at Green Bay. We all picked Green Bay. We were all right. New York Giants at Dallas. We all went with the Cowboys. Once again, everybody was correct in that one. And then we came down to San Francisco at Denver. And I'm sorry to say I was the only one who was right because Denver did win. Would have rather been wrong, but what are you going to do?
We picked that for you, actually, John.
I appreciate it, yeah.
That was your pick, actually.
So I ended the week at 4-0. The other panelists were a solid 3-1, a great week for us. And now we're going to get into this week's games without wasting any time. We're going to start with Baltimore at Cincinnati. Katie?
Baltimore at Cincinnati, poised to be a more interesting game than I would have once said. Cincinnati's already beat Baltimore this season. However, I think the balance has shifted somehow. Where is Cincinnati's defense, I think, is the question on everyone's mind. I was talking up Cincinnati for the majority of the last couple of weeks. Last week's thrashing made me question my judgment on that. We also mentioned earlier, how significant is AJ Green's absence? I think it's proving more significant than we thought. If Mohamed Sanu can really step up, that might make things more interesting. But the Ravens' pass defense right now is looking exceptional. It's a must-win game for Cincinnati to not become insignificant in the division. Well, I won't say insignificant, but to be less of a dominant force. However, I'm actually going to pick Baltimore to upset them at home. It pains me in the depths of my heart to pick Baltimore to win anything.
Fair enough.
I'm actually going to pick them to upset.
Yeah, it was interesting because Baltimore lost at home against Cincinnati, and I think we're actually going to flip this around. I do think the fact that they're not able to move the ball that well, that's Cincinnati. AJ Green may come back. If he does, it's just going to be for a couple snaps or a limited basis, it looks like. So I pick Baltimore in this game as well.
Yeah, I got to go Baltimore as well. Whether you're wacko for Flacco or just have no confidence in Dalton at the moment, but Baltimore looks tough. And Baltimore's actually like one of my choices. Is that one of the teams to challenge the Broncos going down the season?
Well, I have to disagree with all of you. I know Cincinnati didn't do much last week, but I think they will recover. And at the end of the day, it's still Joe Flacco, wacko. As you said, you know.
Can we call him Sacco?
Sacco
Let's
for
call him
Flacco.
Sacco. I think Cincinnati will win by a field goal.
I'm actually with Mark on this one. I like Cincinnati at home. I like them for all the intangibles. You know, that whole... When it gets down to a game that you absolutely have to win, you see teams often bounce back. And this is such a crazy year in football. You know, a team looks like a world beater one week and they look horrible the next week. And I think this is Cincinnati's week to look good again. So
I say who day as much as I can, but yeah, it hurts my heart.
All right. Next, probably for my money, the game of the week.
Always is when the Eagles play.
Yeah. Philadelphia at Arizona.
Yeah, listen, two teams 5-1. Obviously, a lot of attention into that game. Philadelphia Eagles going away to Arizona, play down there. We touched on it a little bit earlier. I touched on it a little bit earlier. The defense in Arizona is quite interesting because they're number one against the run, but they're second to last against the pass. Crazy facts there. How does that happen? And they're actually only letting up 19 points a game, puts them at about 4th in the league. So they've got a balanced defense as far as stopping points getting up there, but the fact that they're able to actually hold players to the teams to that amount of points is actually quite interesting for me. I think that's going to be a difficult thing. They've been getting sacked quite a lot as well. They've been sacked 11 times this year. The Philadelphia Eagles have sacked the quarterback in the last 2 games 10 times. I think the pressure that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to put on Carson Palmer is going to be a little bit too much. My big concern, though, on that side of things and the Eagles side of things is Darren Sproles. Looks like he's not going to play. Got injured the week before the bye. I think they really need to take some time with him, bringing him back. He's a little bit too key for the team, both running the ball, receiving the ball, and also returning key player on the special team side of things. Be interesting side of things. I do think that they're going to have a little bit too much there for the Arizona Cardinals, as you can probably imagine. Philadelphia away, close one.
I also agreed, close one, but I say the Arizona Cardinals pull it out.
Yeah.
We talked them up before, and looking very much like their 1925 team, really impressive. I say also close, but in the reverse. I picked the Cardinals.
Yeah, I got the Cardinals winning this one. Sorry, Philly, Chris, really. But I think it's going to be a very low-scoring game. It's not going to be a high-scoring game. I think it's going to be the opposite. It is hot in Arizona this weekend because I've already looked at the forecast. I don't know how those Northeastern boys will be able to sweat it out, but I see the Cardinals winning this one in a very close one, but low-scoring game.
I have to say I like Nick Foles, and Nick Foles will pull it off for Philly by a touchdown or more.
Suck up.
Yeah.
I like it.
I think Philadelphia's gotten away with a lot of close games this season.
27-0 last week.
Yeah. But in general, they've been close. They've gotten away with a lot of them. I see them dropping a close one in Arizona, being on the road, being part of it definitely. But also, I got to back up my statement earlier. I think they're going to pull out 12 wins. I got to get them somewhere. So Arizona this week in a close one. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about Seattle at Carolina. Gosh, not too long ago, this sounded like a heck of a game. We'd have been all, marking it and making sure that we got a chance to sit down and watch it. And now suddenly both of these teams really need a win. Both of these formerly impressive, stout defenses are looking a little shaky, or in Carolina's case, just
Absent.
bad. Absent. Carolina's in particular has just been really disappointing after their hot start. I mean, they got a couple of wins out of the gate. They look like world beaters. Since then, it's been really up and down. I mean, maybe the highlight since then has been a tie at Cincinnati, 37-37. Their defense has been falling apart, and that cannot be solely explained by the loss of their all-pro Greg Hardy. It's just they've not looked good. Their running game is very hit and miss, and of course that's always their committee and who's injured and who's not and who do they have to go this week. Seattle's having problems of their own, of course. Last week, especially against the Rams, they didn't look very good, but I see Russell Wilson stepping it up and their ground game punishing the Panthers. Seattle pulls it out late.
Well, I agree with you because it's both quarterbacks, Seattle's Wilson and Carolina's Newton, similar in style, very mobile. You can both gun it down the field if they have to. I just think Seattle has just a little bit more weapons at the moment. I think Seattle needs to win this game away. Really, they just really need to win this one away. I think Seattle wins this one close, but wins this one.
Despite me saying that they're a team falling, I say that they're going to get a little hiccup and come back and beat Carolina. I agree with you at saying that they've got more weapons in their arsenal than Carolina does.
Yeah, gosh, initially I wanted to go Seattle on this one, but I'm actually going to flip it around. I'm going to go Carolina. I think there's a little bit more there in that Seattle locker room that's hidden beneath the surface. They traded away Percy Harvin from some internal locker room types of issues. They couldn't handle him. Going through, I think, away at Carolina is going to be a little bit too much for him. Carolina at home.
I have to agree with Chris. I think Seattle is just overrated at the moment, and they're entirely depending on Marshawn Lynch. And I like Cam Newton style. I go with Carolina.
Okay. Nice splits this week. We're not going to have this everybody
Derision
agreeing
amongst
thing.
the ranks.
Yeah.
I like it though.
The games might not be as interesting overall, but they'll be more exciting now. Mark is going to take a stab at talking about Indianapolis at Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I think most of you out there will call me a little crazy once you hear what I have to say, and probably my colleagues will shake my head. But in the first part of Touchdown Magazine, we heard about the ups and downs of teams, and I think this matchup is an entire turnaround, because I believe that Indianapolis will go down and that Pittsburgh will rise and shine. And now why? I mean, I have to say Andrew Luck is in his own league, you know, up there with Peyton Manning somewhere. He's young, he'll be good. But other than you guys said, I think Trent Richardson, you know, he is not fitting into the Colts game style. And probably Katie's heart is still broken because Cleveland traded him away, and he never reached the stats that he had in Cleveland. You know, in fact, he's now, I think, he's standing somewhere at 315 yards rushing, only 2 rushing touchdowns. And in order to be a playoff contender, you have to have a rushing game. So on the other side, we have Pittsburgh and Big Ben Roethlisberger. He's got the experience. He's still good. He's great in my eyes. They still have Le'Veon Bell, and they have Antonio Brown. So I go Pittsburgh on this one by a field goal.
Yeah, I'm going to go the other way. Indy, they're looking good.
Yeah, to me, you can't discount Ahmad Badshaw, the two running backs on that side of things. I go Indianapolis as well.
I can't pick Baltimore and Pittsburgh to win in the same week, and since I talked up Indianapolis so much, I'm going to say they continue to rise. Indy, but close.
I pick Indy to win this when they walk away with this game. Second half, it's all Indianapolis.
Dave, you give us a real quick rundown on Green Bay and New Orleans?
Okay, this is one of these games we just love to watch. You got 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks meeting in New Orleans this weekend with Aaron Rodgers of the Packers going in to play Drew Brees of the New Orleans Saints. Both teams have mediocre defenses right now, but they both got great quarterbacks and a lot of weapons out there. I see this be high scoring, but Green Bay wins this one and a close one.
I think New Orleans has been down all season and not what they used to be. I say Packers to win.
I'm off my rocker this week. New Orleans.
I
have to say, New Orleans plays at home, in the Dome. Aaron Rodgers is not going to get away with another fake spike, so watch New Orleans win that.
Saints at home, they need the win. They're going to get it. Okay. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week again on Touchdown. Bye-bye.
And talk it out.
Talking it out.